The other thing I want to do is to transform the images so that they're not looking as bland as they are now. And the way to do that is to add some kind of border. What I'm going to do is go to the top one. I'm going to double click and I'm going to go to stroke. We're going to give them a simple white border. So I'll click on color and choose white. I'm going to try and zoom in so we can see what's happening a bit better. And what I'm going to do is to increase the stroke size to around 25, maybe 27. And we've got rounded borders there, so what I'm going to do is to change the style to inside. That will crop away a little bit of the image non-destructively, but it'll give us the square borders that I'm looking for. And I'm going to hit OK. And that's looking a bit more like a photograph rather than something that I threw together on a PC. So I'm going to double click again and add a drop shadow to make it look like it's kind of floating above the background. So drop shadow, and what I want is actually to use the global drop shadow so that all the drop shadows are similar. So it's as if we've got one light source. So keeping that ticked, I'm going to choose 135 degrees, and the default settings 505 seem to be pretty good. So I'm going to hit OK. Now, because I like the look of that, I'm going to right click on that layer and I'm going to choose copy layer style. Then I'm going to click on the next item and all the way down to the other 4 images that I'm going to use in the collage, and I'm going to right click and choose paste layer styles. And that's a very quick and simple way of adding layer styles to these other images. And that's basically done. So what I can do now is to zoom out, and we can see what that looks like. So the next thing I want to do is to arrange these items in a slightly more interesting way. So to do that, again, I'm going to use the free transform tool. So that's Control or Command T, and basically I'm just going to rotate these images just a little bit to make it look as though they're not so neatly arranged. Because I've got the auto select with the move tools selected, I can just click on an image that I want to transform and it becomes active for the transform command. So let's just rotate this way, bring it down a bit maybe, and we've got a little simple collage happening right there. Now the thing that I've noticed is that this image here has got a white border on a white background, which doesn't look sensible. So there are a couple of ways I can tackle this. I can go in and maybe give it a vignette, or I can add a different color border just to make it look like it's got a sensible border. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to choose the stroke, and we'll choose some kind of innocent looking light blue color. And that looks fine. And that looks a bit more sensible. So let me just zoom in a bit. And we've basically got our collage there. Now the other thing I want to do is to add a little point of interest, which I'm going to do using one of the textures that I've imported. And to do that, I'm going to go to the background, and I'm going to duplicate that. I'm just going to hold down Alt or Option and click and drag, and that creates a copy. And again, what I can do is to use the Control T or Command T to free transform, and again holding down Option or Alt, I can bring this in, maybe rotate it. But before I do that, I don't want this silly little white border around it. What I want to do is to have just a simple, to have it looking like a simple piece of paper. I've reduced the size of the layer, and I want to add a layer mask to it. But first of all, I want to make it upright again. Now what you can do with the free transform tool is to enter in specific measurements up here at the top to control just about every aspect of the transformation. Let me see what happens if I put in 90 there. And as you can see, it's straightened out the item. It's now standing upright again. I'm going to hit return again. And what I'm going to do now is to go here, and I'm actually going to zoom in first. Yeah, that's Windows beeping at me. I'm going to use the select tool, the rectangular select tool, to create a selection. And having done that, I'm just going to create a mask. And it's as simple as that. What we can now do, because the mask and the layer are linked together, we can use the free transform tool, and the mask will now transform along with the layer. So with this item selected, Control T again, and so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go and get that curvy cursor, turn it a little bit, place it where I want it to go. Maybe now holding down Option or Alt and Shift, I can resize it and just add a little bit of a drop shadow. And again, as long as the global light is turned on, it will match the other drop shadows. And hit return. That there is our collage. I suppose to finish off, I could add a bit of a radial gradient to one of the layers, and maybe just crop the image a little bit. So that's what I'm going to do. What I'm going to do actually, first of all, is to group these images together. That's Control or Command G on the keyboard. And what I can now do is to move them all together. So as long as this group is selected, I can move them all together and place them exactly where I want. And then I can now crop the image. Choose the crop tool, which allows me to crop the image without actually doing any harm to the image. I'm going to select my crop like that, and I'm going to choose hide rather than delete, and that will allow me to edit the cropping a bit later on. If I choose the full layers, all the layers together, we've still got the cropped area outside of the canvas. I'm going to Control Z, and what I'm going to do now is just add a bit of a gradient to the background just to make it look a bit better. So I'm going to go to the background, create new layer, and in this new layer, actually I'm just going to create an adjustment. Gradient. We'll choose two bluish hues. Increase the opacity and make it radial. Increase the scale. So what I've done basically is to create a radial gradient running from a very light blue to a very dark blue, and radial at 150% scale, and then on top of that I've put that on normal. I can actually reduce the opacity maybe down to around 50%, and on top of that I've put on an overlay of the background again, and what I'm going to do is to reduce the opacity of that overlay to around 25%, and the dandelion I've increased the opacity to around 31% and put that on top of the other two background layers. So I'm just going to hold down Shift and select all those layers, and again Control or Command G to group them as layers, and call that the background, and we can call this the collage. And that's our finished image there. So I hope you learned something useful there. Thank you for watching. Take care. Until next time. Bye.